Have you ever forgotten something precious? A name, a face, the exact shade of blue, in a summer sky. For Myra, the forgetting was a thief that stole the most precious thing of all, the sound of her mother's voice. It wasn't a sudden theft, but a slow, cruel fade, like a photograph left in the sun. The laughter that once echoed in her memories became a whisper, and then, silence. A hollow ache settled in her chest, a void where a melody used to be. Desperate, she chased fragments of memory down winding city streets, asking strangers if they remembered a song, a lullaby, anything. But the world was too busy, too loud, too full of new things to remember the old. One rainy afternoon, driven by an instinct she couldn't explain, Myra wandered down an alley she'd never noticed before. Tucked between a modern glass building and a crumbling brick wall was a door of ancient, dark wood. No sign, no handle, just a faint, golden light seeping from beneath it. Pushing it open, she wasn't met with a dusty storeroom, but an impossible sight. A vast, circular room, lined floor to ceiling with books. But these weren't ordinary books. Some shimmered with a soft light, others hummed with a quiet energy, and a few were so faint they were almost transparent. The air smelled of old paper, rain, and something else, nostalgia. Behind a towering desk sat a man with eyes that seemed to hold the dust of centuries. He looked up, not with surprise, but with a gentle, knowing sadness. "You've forgotten something, haven't you?" he asked, his voice like the turning of a page. Myra, stunned, could only nod. "This," he gestured around the magnificent space, "is the library of what was lost. We are the keepers of memories the world no longer has time for." He explained that every book on these shelves held a forgotten moment. The taste of a grandmother's cookies, the feeling of a first love's hand, the triumphant roar of a crowd at a long-ago game, and yes, even the sound of a mother's voice. He led her to a small, slender volume bound in pale blue, her mother's favorite color. As Myra reached for it, her hand trembled. The librarian cautioned her, "Once a memory is taken from the library, it returns to the world. But it will fade again if no one actively remembers it." Myra didn't care. She opened the book, and there it was. Not words on a page, but a symphony. Her mother's voice, clear and bright, calling her name, singing her favorite lullaby, telling a silly joke. Tears streamed down Myra's face, tears of relief and profound joy. The hollow ache in her chest filled with warmth. She sat there for hours, wrapped in the sound she thought was gone forever. Days turned into weeks. Myra became a fixture in the library, spending every spare moment there. She noticed something troubling though. Many of the books were fading. Their light was dimming, their pages turning brittle and translucent. The old librarian explained the heartbreaking truth. The library wasn't just a collection. It was a living entity, sustained by the act of remembering. But the world outside was forgetting faster than ever. "The library is dying," he said, his ancient eyes filled with despair, "because the world has forgotten how to remember." A new resolve hardened in Myra's heart. She couldn't let this place, this sanctuary of beautiful, fragile things, simply disappear. She couldn't let her mother's voice, and all the other precious memories, fade into nothingness for a second time. "I'll help," she declared. "How? What can I do?" The librarian smiled. He handed her a blank, empty book and a pen filled with ink that shimmered like liquid starlight. "You can't just take memories," he said. "You must also give. You must become a guardian. Listen to the stories people think are unimportant, the little moments they're about to discard, and write them down. Give them a home here, where they can be safe." So, Myra began her new life. By day, she walked the city, but now with a purpose. She became a professional listener. She sat with an old man in the park and wrote down the story of his first, clumsy dance. She listened to a young barista describe the exact shade of orange in a sunset she saw once, and she captured it on the page. She documented the feeling of a child's tiny hand gripping a finger, the secret recipe for a perfect pie, the private joke shared between two best friends. With every story she wrote, a new book would appear on the library shelves, glowing with a soft, steady light. She was fighting back against the tide of forgetting, one small, precious story at a time. The library seemed to breathe a little deeper with each new edition. One evening, as she was carefully chronicling the story of a lost dog finding its way home, she noticed the librarian himself seemed more faded than the oldest books. His hands were nearly transparent, his voice a faint whisper. He had been the guardian for so long, he had poured all of himself into the library, but who was there to remember him? He had given his own memories to make room for others. Mira realized with a jolt what she had to do. The ultimate act of a guardian. She sat down across from him, opened a new, blank book, and said, "Tell me your story." From the very beginning, hesitantly at first, then with a growing warmth, he spoke. He told her of a time before cities had glass towers, of a world that moved at the pace of the seasons. He spoke of his own lost love, his own childhood memories, the moment he first discovered the library, and his long, lonely vigil as its keeper. As he spoke, Mira wrote, the starlight ink flowing, capturing not just his words, but the sorrow, the joy, the love, and the immense dedication of his long life. The more she wrote, the more solid he became. Color returned to his cheeks, the light of memory to his eyes. When she wrote the final word, he stood before her, whole and vibrant again. He looked at her, his eyes shining with gratitude, and placed a gentle, solid hand on her shoulder. "The library chose well," he whispered. "It was always meant for you." He then walked towards a shimmering archway of light she'd never seen before, turned, and gave her one last, peaceful smile before stepping through and vanishing. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the library of what was lost, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Mira stood behind the great desk, no longer a visitor, but the new guardian. The library felt alive around her, humming with the gentle power of countless preserved moments. As she began her first day, something wonderful was happening out in the world. A man on his way to work suddenly remembered the sweet taste of the wild strawberries he picked as a boy. A woman rushing for the train paused. A smile touching her lips as she recalled a lullaby her grandmother used to sing. All across the world, small, forgotten, beautiful things were bubbling back to the surface. The forgetting had not been stopped, but it was being pushed back. In her quiet library, Mira smiled, picked up her starlight pen, and waited for the next story to arrive.